Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Monday morning. It's time for a new model build, and if you saw the splash screen and heard the jaunty music or sound, I don't even know what I've put in for my introduction yet. So I'm vamping at this point. Vamping. I finished a vampire now last week, so that's on the brain. Anyway, if you clicked on the picture, you know what I'm building this week. It's fall, and we're into the first full week of October, and the second full week of October, and it's fall. It's the nip is in the air. It's getting cooler outside, and I don't know where I was going with that introduction, but anyway, I'm building the TIE Fighter this week. Yes, I wanted to get dressed up formal, so I got my tie. I've been wanting to get to this kit for a while, and so I am. And basically, that's it. I like to balance my figures and my ships, or my hardware and my figures, so I did a couple figures a while ago. Now we're going to go back to doing a ship. And this model is a marvel. I really, really like what they've done with this subject. Now they're calling it the studio scale, which means it's supposedly the size of the filming miniature. And that's great. I've built TIE Fighters before. Everybody's built TIE Fighters before. You had the old NPC TIE Fighters. You had Bandai TIE Fighters. You had all shapes and sizes and varieties. But this is your original OG Mac Daddy New Hope TIE Fighter. And by gum and by golly, we're gonna have new hope that we can do a good job on this. So let's come down and meet the parts. Not that you don't recognize them already, but let's meet the parts. And here we have a table full of tie. Yes, I sent out for tie today for lunch. This is the TIE Fighter kit. Now, I will tell you, now, this is a wonderful sized kit. And the only way that you can make a sizable kit like this and you know, at least affordable. I mean, yes, this is not a cheap kit, but the only way you can even make something this big and make it somewhat affordable is to capitalize on your duplication of parts. And I gotta say, the way that they molded these wings is genius. You have repeating parts. It is so much easier to make one tool and shoot it 4 or 5 times with styrene and make your kit that way than it is to make multiple tools, that are all unique. The way they did these wings is a marvel. This is a package of wing pieces. Now there are parts that repeat, so you make this one tool with this repeating part and you shoot it a few times. I love it. It's just creative thinking at its best. But let's look at the parts here. Now we've got the parts for said wing here, the panels, and with the actual cool shade texture, not the waffle texture that you would see on some of the other TIE Fighters. This actually has the cool shade texture. But I love the way these things fit together. They're like a puzzle piece. You put them there, you put the frame over it to cover the seam, and Bob's your uncle, you've got a wing. Which is the reason why you see I don't have any of my cutting mats down. I want to be able to use the glass of this drawing table to lay these panels completely flat so that when I glue them together, they will stay completely flat. And that's another reason why you want to do an assembly like this in multiple pieces. Now it's, they could have chosen to do that as one piece. Of course, it would have made for a larger tool, and you still would have shot multiples of it. But when you're dealing with something that is this smooth or that skinny and that flat, look at that. There is no warp in there whatsoever. And the larger the piece of plastic that's coming off of that hot tooling, when they go to force it out off of the mold, the bigger the piece is, and the thin like this, there's a temptation for it to want to warp. So that's why you do it in smaller pieces. So the smaller pieces have less of a, they cool quicker, and there be less of a tendency for them to warp. But enough of tool making and model production. Here we have your typical piece. We've got your pilot set up. We've got a cockpit. We've got an interior for the cockpit. Now I will tell you, looking at the parts over this kit as I have, I was struck by two things almost immediately. One is how small the pilot looks inside the cockpit. Just from watching the movie, and Lord knows I can't even tell you how many times I've seen Star Wars. I wouldn't even hazard to guess. It was on again last weekend on FX, and it was so nice to see it in its proper aspect ratio for once. I think, I don't know whether they're using the 4K print or not, but it's so much better than how TBS and TNT and had been running it ad nauseum for the last 20 years, but they had filled your screen with it, and it wasn't the proper aspect ratio. You weren't seeing the whole picture. But glad to see it again last weekend. But I did never, in my wildest, I did never believe that the cockpit was, that the pilot had so much room inside the cockpit. I always thought it was much more claustrophobic than that. And the second thing is, that was first thing. Second thing is, I didn't know that the guns here stuck out quite so far. I would have imagined, and maybe this is bad design from so many other models, that it was much closer. These stalks were not that tall, that it was much closer to the base. So we may be doing some modifying on these guns. Now I know a lot of research has gone into this. I know the best brains of our times have been consulted on this, and I can go ahead and say, without much fear of being contradicted, that this thing was probably researched to the teeth. And all I can say to that is, I still think those are too long. I'm no authority on this, but we're going to see. I know that they designed this so that you could put a bulb up to the back of it, but I don't understand why they didn't hollow this. Either make it two pieces or make this top a cap or something. I'm not going to try to second guess them. We may be doing some scratch building to make our own guns. That's all I'm going to say. But the first thing I want to do is get some primer on the parts that need primed, and I want to get these wings panels put together so that I can get some black primer on those. So let's get started. Join us again in a galaxy far, far away, a long, long time ago, where we will be working on this. Oh, that was the last thing. I'm sorry, that was the other point that I wanted to make, is how do you display this thing? Yes, you want to light it. Yes, you want to put, you want to light up the cockpit. You want to make the little pew-pew guns go pew-pew. But how do you display it? Do you display it on its belly, on this base, like they say? Do you, and then run power to the base? Do you try to make it completely self-contained with a small battery, and that way you can zoom in around the room? Do you display it just rested on its wingtips? Do you display it hung from its ceiling? Do you display it, like it's being hung in a docking bay? I have not quite figured out how I want to display it. I'm pretty sure that I don't want to display it sitting on a stand. It's again, I hate to keep hitting this same button, but shelf space around here has become quite a premium, and I don't know, by the time you do this and you do that and then you put the wings on it, how much room this thing is going to take up. And here's one of the wings with the pieces all laid out. Now it runs about 10.5 by 13 without the frame. So if you are trying to calculate your own shelf space, figure out that plus this, and that'll give you an idea of the Look at the size of that thing. Cut the cheddar. Okay, so I decided to do these in halves. That seemed to be a more manageable chunk. And what I'd recommend is if you have a piece of glass like this that you can work on, or perhaps a stone countertop or something that is absolutely flat, that is the best, because these pieces that need to lay flat, and you can put a weight on them to hold them in the right shape. And you know, you don't have to do it forever, depending on how quickly your glue sets up, but it will keep your alignment much better that way. I was thinking of putting it down on my cutting mat, but then my cutting mat isn't even either, because it's got like little glue bombs on it or stuff like that that might, you know, jump up and be in the way. So if you've got a piece of metal, you know, like a metal sign or something like that, something that's completely flat, it's best to work that way. You don't really need to clamp them down. They're not bowed. They're not going to fight you. It's just something that will make life easier as you're setting it down. All I did was take the piece, run a little MEK in the seam, put the pieces together, and then laid another bead of the MEK just over top of the seam here. And everything here is, see, I'll flip it over and I'll do this side just to reinforce it, but this is all covered up with the framework. So as long as you don't get any glue in the holes, you'll be fine. These holes are where the frame has to fit in, and you don't want to cover those up or get those closed over. Okay, I'm working on the tiny pilot. Well, the pilot's not so tiny, but it's the details around them that are so tiny. And I have to commend round two and condemn them at the same time. A, you made it so difficult. But B, providing two sets of the tiniest parts, 48 and 49, 38 and 39. I'm sorry, 38, 39, 40 and 41. There are two sets of these provided in the kit, and I think that's because they know that you will lose at least one of them to the carpet monster. So they're giving you the option of because you know once it's gone, forget about it. You're not going to find it. It's those tiny hoses that go out to the pilot here. Now I've not glued this down to the floor, but I'm using it as a using everything as a framework to hold everything in the right position. But let me see if I can, there we go, and then a zoom in on it. I'm getting ready to run out of battery here, so, but that's it right there. Okay, because I want to light up the floor, I needed to go ahead and mask the recesses. So I just cut some strips and stuck them in there. And now I'm going to mask the bottom so I don't get any overspray on it. I'll end up painting that. Probably painting that red, or else using red lights, or a combination of the two. So I do need to paint the top with a light blocking paint. I think I'm going to try the... I'll put a light coat of the regular Duplicolor sealer primer on it. And then I might hit it with a, once that's down, I might hit a light coat of that black New Worlds paint that does such a good job with light blocking. Well, I'm back from my early morning paint run. I went to Lowe's and got the cheapest stuff they make, which is a flat black project paint, just like $3 for a spray can. I'm going to use that for the base coating on the wings, which have been setting up overnight, and they're nice and flat. Going to use the cheap stuff as an undercoat, and then I got a can of the good stuff. I got a can of Tamiya semi-gloss black, and that's what I'm going to use as a top coat over everything, just a dusting of that. But because it's so expensive, I don't want to try to cover the whole wing with that paint. Use the heavy, cheap stuff for that. Also stopped by the hobby shop and picked up a couple bottles of the body color for the TIE Fighter, which is Ocean Gray 2. It's a darn close match for the color of the sprue. It's maybe not as blue as the filming model, and it's certainly not as gray or light gray as what it looked like on screen, but I think it's a good compromise. I'm not going to get real fussy about mixing a paint to, get the exact match. Partially this is, how do you remember it on screen, and how do you reconcile that with a filming model and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to get too far into the weeds. Like I said, there are people who make it their life's work not only to know what the proper color of Star Wars models are, but to make other people miserable for not using those colors. And I won't stand for it. I'm going to use the colors that I think are going to work the best. The painting festival continues. Outside, I've got all the framework primed. I've got the panels with the black coat on them. Here I've just put a coat of the red clear on the underside of the floor. Top side is still masked. Inside I have painted this it's not white, but it's a warm gray. It is the royal light gray. I don't know how happy I am with that. I may coat that with another color. I certainly don't want to make it white in there, but I don't want it to be everything on the outside is kind of a cool gray, and when the red light shines up on it, I want it to be a warmer red. So I think I will try this out. I'll put a red light against it, see how I like it before I decide to change it or not. And that's also the same case with the back wall. I want the warm side of that. So I want the warm side of gray for the interior, and that will leave the exterior to be the cool blue grays and blacks. This front wall I've done with a gunmetal, and I want to go back into there and see if it needs to be either accented with a pin wash or what exactly it needs. The thing about this TIE Fighter is they're new. Well, if they're not, particularly in A New Hope, they're new. If they're not new, they're darn close to new. And it's one of those deals where, if you're the Empire, chances are when you're off duty on your stormtrooper business, you're washing your vehicles, or there's some way to clean them. That was part of the aesthetic of the movie, was that the rebels were grungy and scrappy and beat up and weather worn, and all of their stuff looked used and broken in, whereas the Empire was bright and shiny and new, with the exception of whatever was in the trash compactor. The halls were crisp and clean. The spaceships were, shiny and bright and brand new, and did not have the same aesthetic. So there is next to no weathering going to be done on this ship. I might do some pin washes on the panels to make them accentuate, but there really is no sense to try to make them look aged or worn or beaten up. That's just not the TIE Fighter aesthetic. Okay, I'm just doing a lighting test now, and the gray that I've chosen is doing a fairly good job. That's just one tiny bulb. But, and of course, what cameras do to LEDs, they make them look more intense than they are. But I think a couple more in there will do the trick. But I think the wall color is about right. So given that, I'm going to go ahead and take this. I'm going to go ahead and gloss the inside walls here. If I can gloss those, then I can put the decals down. It's one of those instances where we kind of have to skip straight to the decaling so that we can close up this inner ball, and then get it ready to attach to the inside of the ship. Okay, I've got parts are drying, got racks of parts drying. I've got the exhaust fan exhausting. I've got a coat of the grayish blue. Well, what I'm calling grayish blue is actually ocean gray 2 on everything, and we're gonna let this dry. I think I'm going to reevaluate it after it's dried, particularly the frame parts. I know that once I put these pieces together, I will be touching up the seam and all that and painting some more in. So it's not meant to be the final top coat, but it'll get it pretty far down the road. Okay, here are the two colors next to each other. I gotta tell you that even though This is Tamiya Semi-Gloss Black. I am not getting anything that looks like a semi-gloss out of it. This looks flat as flat can be. And I don't know whether I need to take this out, take it out to the woodshed, whether I need to take it out back and perhaps spray it with a satin finish. I'm kind of wanting a glossy look for the wings, at least for the black portion. Not a glossy gloss, but you know, something better than just a flat. Okay, I've decided to close out the day by putting the decals in the cockpit so that I can close the cockpit up. Now I have clear coated the inside with a gloss, and I'm getting ready to put these. I think these are the only ones that go in there. I'll check the book once again, but I think that's it. But I'll let these dry in, and then tomorrow I should be able to put a flat coat back over top of them. Okay, so I've got the decals in the cockpit, the control panels. These went in very nice. They're very crisp, clean, wonderfully designed, and beautiful to look at, a joy to behold, a glory forever, and all of that. And then you get to the decals for the pilot. I don't know what you call those gray circles on the helmet there and on the shoulders. It's supposed to be number 14, but they're certainly not imperial symbols. They are simply gray circles, which is a shame because they clearly show them on the box as imperial symbols, as evidenced by these. See the number 14, how it goes down to what is clearly an imperial symbol. That is not remotely what these look like. So, what do we do about that? We take our lumps, and there's not much you can do. It looks something like that. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, and we are back at the TIE Fighter. And I have to say that after giving a night's rest on these decals, I scraped them off. They are no bueno. Particularly the one that's on the chest here, and the one that's trying to bend over the ridge of the helmet. I'm going to repaint those. They're just you're asking too much for the decal that small with no relief cuts in it to bend over all of these different surfaces. So we're going to repaint that. And then we are going to sneeze. Hold on. We're back. You didn't need to hear that. I will say one thing, and I'll say it, I don't care who hears it. There's a thing here that I don't like that I'm going to fix. And I don't care if it's canon. I don't care if it's signed off on by George Lucas himself. I don't like it. It's not good. It offends me. That is the lack of that. The lack of there being a panel there. I noticed, I mean, it's not, there's no decal for it. It's not called out, but it looks stupid. It looks stupid not to, every other panel has a symmetrical panel on the other side, except this one right here. And it's right up, I mean, it's in the front window. It's one of the most obvious things you're going to see. So I am going to paint. I'm going to paint that triangle black. Like I said, I don't care what the bean counters say. I don't care what the rivet counters say. I don't like it. I'm going to fix it. But that will allow me to finish up this inside wall. I'm also going to put some silver, I think, on these ningies there. But I want to be able to do that kind of work today. And I also want to work on the wings today. I have had another night to sit and think about them. Looked at them this morning. I still don't like that finish. I want it to be a satin finish. So I'm going to hit these with a coat of clear satin. The semi-gloss black Tamiya was an utter failure. It was better off just painting them black and then hitting it with a clear coat. I don't think the Tamiya bought me anything, and it was an expensive little can. So you can get what you want to get just out of painting them with a black rattle can. Alright, I'm doing some touching up of some paint and some hand painting on the inside of the cockpit. And I realized what I needed to do was to flat coat the inside walls to keep the decals down and all of that. But then that gave me an issue of the panels now not being shiny. So I'm just going to go back over them with a clear coat, the gloss clear, just on the decals, so that I can get those glossed back up and gives them another finish, and hopefully will make it nicer for reflecting once the lighting goes in. Just painting over top of the decals themselves. They've had a clear coat of flat to seal them in. So also painting the raised portions of the back wall with a silver, using this photo here on the box as a reference for colors, and it shows some silver highlights and whatnots. So once we do that, then I believe we really will be in a position where we can close up the two halves of the cockpit. And because the way it's designed, I can plop the pilot down at any point. The pilot is various finishes of black. It's gold. It's glosses and flats. I'm starting to paint the details in on the chest pack and things like that. So he's off to the side, but I need to work on these panels, and then we'll go back to the wings. The wings, believe it or not, they probably have the most parts of any of the sub-assemblies. So getting those done and off to the side and under a press where I can put some weight down on them to hold them in place, I think that's going to be the grand portion of today's work. Alrighty, the displays are sufficiently shiny. It took a second coat, but I think it was worth the effort. You can see the gloss when the light hits them. And now we can go ahead and glue this together. At least the two sides and the back we can put together. The floor I still want to play with a little bit because I have to remove the vinyl that I have that is protecting the clear bits. Out on the back porch we have the wing portions drying. I do like what the semi-gloss spray has done to those, or the satin spray has done to those. So I'll be bringing those back in a minute. I want to get some of this stuff off the table because the wings take up an inordinate amount of room. Okay, it's surgery time. I need to cut some bits on the TIE fighter, and I'll explain in a second why that's necessary. This is the bottom piece. This is the bottom piece that the metal post goes up through. And there's a little cap that goes on there if you're not using the metal post. I will not be using the metal post. I want to cut this off because when you have, and I've got this taped up because the glue is drying, when you put this up against it, it actually hits the bottom of the floor. And if you want to do anything with that floor as far as lighting it, that's no bueno, because it hits it and it blocks the light. So I'm going to cut this post off, but I'm going to save it because I do want to use it. It is the perfect size to mount that post to, but there's a secret as to where it's going to be mounted. I have to change the mounting position based on where my lighting is going to go. So I got the old Sonic Saber out, and I am ready to slice some styrene here. I'm going to try to make this as clean as possible. Actually, you know, I could go around that because here is the cap that goes on top of that. So if I use the saber to cut the cap off, just like this, lovely, lovely, cleaner than using nippers, and I position that here. You'll see that that's how it lines up on using the keyhole pattern here. Line that up with that. And I can go almost all the way out to the edge here and still be okay. So what I want to do is I don't have a pencil here. I'm basically going to cut almost all of that out. Okay, the saber made short work of that, and now I've got that post cut out, and I can go ahead and glue this fixture in. And since that's how it needs to go, there's no sense of ever doing anything else with it. I can go ahead and glue it in now, and then whatever painting will go on top of it. Okay, we're into mid-afternoon and I still haven't gotten to the wings yet today. I'm playing with ideas for the floor lighting. Obviously well, not obviously, you haven't seen it. I've taken the masks off the floor so you can see how it was painted, and I'm trying to discern the best method of lighting. I'm trying to see if a single 5mm bulb projected from the floor will be enough to light the whole floor. It's one of those things that's tough to guess. It's tough to mock up. I'll show you what I can do so far, but like I said, it's not the easiest. You'll get the picture. So if I do something like that, and then set this on it, I don't want to scratch the floor because I can repaint that, but I'd rather not. So if I'm just guessing, boy, I should have left that cap off, I think. Let's see if it's secure. It's not that secure. Solved that problem. Okay, so we do this, and then we set, actually we can set this inside now. If I set this inside the ball, like that, and then I put the floor in, see, that goes that way. Is a single bulb going to be enough? We don't have a lot of clearance here. So if I set that like that, I kind of like the pattern that it's doing all over the floor, but I don't think that's enough. I think we might have to go with some strip lighting. Now if we do that, that automatically puts us into 9-volt range, and we can't use unresisted single LEDs like I was hoping. So something like that. It does give a nice pattern. Let's go ahead and put the front on. That'll help hold everything in place. Let's do that. Now this is going to be tough because this is not something you want to put on and take off a bunch of different times. You don't want those pins to break. Okay, so we've got a floor in here. Yes, I'll go pick it up. Okay, we've got the floor in like that, and single bulb from the bottom. I don't know, by the time you put the pilot in there, it's going to cover up a lot. I think we are better off with some strip lighting. Okay, so continuing work on lighting up the cockpit. Now tell me if I'm nuts or if it's me, or but doesn't that seem awfully spacious, no pun intended, for a cockpit for the TIE fighter? I always pictured it to be a much tighter affair than that. That could just be my own brain, but you could do jumping jacks in there, and I always swore that it was much more claustrophobic than that. As a matter of fact, I used to whine about how it was depicted in the sequel movies, where the New Order, the First Order TIE fighters, you could fit 2 people in there. I could see fitting 2 people in there back to back. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get on to the lighting. This is a single strand of LED just stuck down to a piece of card on the bottom. And when you put that in, does that light up the cockpit enough? Now there's no diffuser in there yet. I may want to stuff some fiberfill or something in there, but I am wondering if that is enough of a cockpit glow. Now granted, in the real world, those in the real, he said in the real world, on the set of the fictional movie, the instrument panels would also be adding light, and these are not lit up instrument panels. So all of my lighting is coming from the floor, but I'm debating whether or not that is enough or whether I need to add. I could see adding an inch here and an inch there just to kind of fill out that circle. And I'm thinking that that might give me enough. If I did it this way, no, it doesn't really add anything. I'm just thinking whether or not I make an X on the floor, or I'm thinking just adding an inch here and an inch there. Okay, I brought the wing panels back in just because we haven't seen them in such a while. But that's kind of what I was hoping for, is the not prismatic, that's the wrong term, the off and on flip-floppy look that I wasn't getting when everything was painted flat. Here you can really see the cool shade texture. You just weren't seeing that when everything was flat. And trying to work out how these frames are going to go on. They're going to be an adventure on themselves, I can tell you that much already. Well, I finally got a floor that I like, and it's a couple, 3 segments put together with this wonderful wire that Jim Bruss sent. It's really flexible, and the nice thing is you can cut a really small piece of it and still be able to strip both ends. Usually what happens is either it breaks off or it pulls the whole wire through, but I was able to make tiny little connections that way. And so when I stick a battery up to it, we've got a nice medallion of floor. And when I put that over top, well, again, let's get this up in camera. So I don't know why I'm having such a difficulty today with the hand-eye coordination, but it is not fun. Let me see, let's put this in here, and then we put that in the bottom cap. We stick there's the light in the bottom cap, and then we stick that into the cockpit, and I think it throws enough light. Now close that off with the roof, and you'll see that we've got a good nice red glow going on in there that's not too overpowering. But if you look down, you'll see the hot spots in the floor. So I'm thinking that I might want to either pack that with fiberfill or see if I can find some diffusing plastic to just put over top of those hot spots there. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's Thursday. We're going to do wings today. It's wing day. Thursday is wing day. I just moved everything else off of the table as far as the main body and getting the lighting situated on that, because I wanted to see some, after all my head scratching yesterday, I wanted to see some actual physical results. And I don't know why, but this one wing is just causing me all kinds of heartache, and it's behaving like a bad child. I don't know why. The parts are identical to the other wing, which went together without a problem. But I noticed as soon as I started putting any of the framework on it that it was pulling it into warped positions. It was pulling it out of square. And clearly no bueno. So, sorry, I'm cleaning up a little bit as I go here. Jim, I'm enjoying the heck out of this. The paint cleaner that you whipped up here, I love it. I absolutely do. I'm going to have to remember your recipe for it to make some more when I run out. But it's all but replaced the regular to me, a thinner that I've been using. But here's the thing. As generic as these parts look, I will say generic, as similar as these parts look, they are not similar parts. There's a reason and a method and a madness here, and you either have to embrace the madness and ride it all the way to the result, or you yourself will go mad. And I know that's a highfalutin way of saying it, but you can't just pick any one of these and put them down and have it work out. Oh no, nay nay, as Phil would say, nay nay. You have to use specific parts for specific bits of the framework. And I think maybe that's where I was going amiss. I was not paying attention to the part numbers as I should have been doing. So now that we've got this reflattened, let's see, I'm stuck here because I glued it down. There you go. I think I'll flip this over and actually no, I think maybe gluing them together too strongly was a problem because it didn't give me any wiggle room when it came time to put the framework on. So I'm thinking that what I need to do is just have them loosely attached so that there's a little bit of expansion and contraction when I go to put the framework pieces on. And trust me, I've got every clamp on standby, because what I would like to do is do the outsides of these first. And you would think that, okay, all of these that have the pegs on them, for every one of these that has a peg on it, there's a one that has a hole in it. You would say, okay, well, let's put all the peg sides down. That's not how it works. Some of them are peg sides down, and some of them are peg side up. So that's probably where I was going wrong as well. What you have to do is you have to pick a top and a bottom, just designated. Okay, that's top and bottom. There is an inside and an outside hub. What I'm going to call this is a hub cover. This is the outside hub cover. It's got that notch on it. Sorry, can't see it. It's got this guy on it. That makes it that makes it the outside hub cover. Also, this detail, which is unique to all of the pieces, that is the one detail that is not repeated. That needs to go in the upper left. So if you're going to do your hub like this, then that needs to go in the upper left. There's one on the inside that once you flip it over, that goes on the upper left. So we start with that. We start with this one piece. It's got all the pegs in it. It will go like this, and it will bind these two pieces together. Okay, I've laid out the outer side of the wing to match the diagram on the instructions. And all of these are pins down with the exception of these two, which are, you can see the holes. The rest of these are pins down. They have pins on them. So I can go ahead and sink all of those in, and I'm going to do that on both wings and or the outside of both wings, and let that stuff be setting up under clamps. That's the best way I can think to do the assembly line on it, because if I can do the pins down on both wings and then put them aside, flip them over, yeah, I think that's going to be the best working model, no pun intended. So let's go ahead and get these guys glued up. Now I am considering, let's see, if I leave those, I just want to leave them in the right orientation. This is the guy I want to glue down. And if I I'm thinking of whether I need to get out the epoxy or not. I certainly don't want to use CA. That would seize up too quickly. Although, what I should do is probably... Now see, here's the thing. I'm sorry I'm making you listen to all this. Here's the thing. I need to, when I push these through, I need to have really clean pins on the other side. I can't get them gummed up with glue or anything because of how it needs to interlock with the outer parts. And if the pins are real messy or they've got glue globbed on them, then the outer parts are not going to attach cleanly. So, let me do this and this. I'm just moving these off so that I don't mess up their orientation. But you can see once I do this, maybe what I need to do is glue it where the pins aren't. That way I'm not getting the glue near the pins. So if I put a dab of epoxy on either side of where those pins are, that keeps the pins clean. Okay, some progress on this wing. Now I'm sorry if this is sounding redundant and confusing and all of that, but you should see it from where I'm sitting. I've got the pieces of the spines of the fins. I've got all these arms on here, whether you want to call them spines or arms or fins. I've got these guys in. And this one, and this one do not have the pins in it. They've got the holes in it. These are the pins that I'm talking about. These are the pins, and then the corresponding ones have the holes. And these three have the pins going down. These are locked into the part. These three do not. So that when you flip this over, you put the corresponding ones with the pins through the hole and lock into the ones that are underneath, the ones that don't have any pins. But this is where my quandary is, or my issue is. I need to, when I push these pins through, I need them to be very clean. I can't have any glue glopped around those, particularly at the base, because I need the corresponding piece to lock into those. And if there's a bunch of glue and garbage around them, they won't do that cleanly. So, once I get them through, and I'm doing this other side, yeah, then I can put glue on these when I'm gluing the corresponding fins onto them. But for right now, they've got to be really clean. So what I think I need to do, particularly on this first run, is, and again, these don't have pins, and I'm only talking about the three that have, actually no, I'm talking about everything on this side. Everything on this side, these pins lock in. There's a pin right here, but for the rest of it, they are the holes. I need to put a small bead of glue down the center of those, away from these holes, so that I don't get any glue in the hole, but something that I can use to position the fin in place and lock into the central hub. Now the fins, the panels, the big panels, they're kind of wavy at this point, and I'm really hoping that by the time we put the corresponding side on, that's going to straighten a lot of that out and make them a lot more rigid. But for right now, it's not laying particularly flat, which is what's throwing me off, because I want this to lay flat. But it may be a question of, once I get the other side of the framework in and I get the two sides glued together, that's what's going to give me the reinforcement, and that's what's going to make it seem a lot sturdier. All right, I've got the first side done. The outsides are done, and just taking off the last of the clampage. And now comes the hard part, matching everything up with the insides. But you'll see hopefully what I was going for, and that is to push these pins as far in as I could, and to keep them as clean as possible, so that nothing can get stuck on them. And now when I put the corresponding inside pieces in over top of those pins, I'll have nice clean mating surfaces. But I'm going to get rid of these paper towels, because they are doing nothing. They are doing nothing for me. They're causing problems. They're getting in the way. They're coarse. They're like sand. They get everywhere. They ruin everything. So let's get rid of these paper towels. I still want to keep this glass, but frankly I was doing it so that I wouldn't have any reflections when I was filming. Let's see if the reflection gods are good to us, because now that this takes up so much room, there shouldn't be much reflection. But that's where we're at, and we need to first put the hubs on the inside. First we need to find our designated tops. This is my designated top, and this is my designated top. So we need to line these guys up with those and get them glued down, and then we can put the spokes. That's a good term for it. We'll put the spokes in, and then once the spokes are in, we can glue the perimeters in. So let's go ahead and let's see. Do I need to whip up some? Actually, I can go ahead and smear all this area with regular glue, because I don't need to keep those pins clean anymore. So let me smear those. Let me get the get the MEK out and a big brush, and we are going to brush those areas. Do some cleanup here. The organizational skills of this desk just go completely downhill unless you keep up on it every second of the day. So let me clean off some of this stuff and get ready. Let's see, I'm going to need all my clamps out, so I'll leave those out, leave that out. Okay, yeah, I just need a big sacrificial brush. And which have I been using for that? I think I've been using this brush for that. So let's get that soaking, and then we can put these hubs down. Good evening, I'm back from dinner, and I am doing the second side, the inboard sides of these wings now. And what I've done is, first you got to go around and test fit them. Once you've got the first two done on that side, you kind of know what number part goes where. So I'm just going through and test fitting them first to make sure that they seat all the way down, and if anything needs cleaned out, I can clean it out. But then I go around with the MEK. See, those are sitting down real nice, and yeah, that's actually sturdying things up quite nicely. So I'm just going to, once I test fit it, just going to go around with the MEK, put it over the pins, and brush it into here and somewhere, on the flats. I don't want to put too much, I don't want it sopping, but this is better. This is easier to work with than the epoxy. And putting the MEK on it does lubricate it a little bit, so they do fit over the pins a little better. And then once they're in, I'm just making sure that they are all the way against the sides, or all the way down against the black part, and putting a clip on the end there to hold it together, and just doing a little pushy from both sides to hold it all together. And this side is not getting epoxy, like I said, this is getting regular MEK. So then I can use the tiny brush here and kind of work it into the actual joints. There will be some touch-up painting on this that needs to get done. That's kind of inevitable. So I'm just trying to minimize that. I don't want to go nuts with it. But yeah, let's get one done, and then I'll show you how it looks. Okay, this is a good spot to leave it for tonight. I've got the spokes in on both sides. I've got the top and bottom edges down, and I've got them rubber banded in place. And that can dry overnight, and then I can put the other opposing outer edges on tomorrow, but that's a goodly place to leave it. And just to prove, I've got both wings done to the same point. Just checking that joint there, it looks good. And it did straighten them out. The putting all the spokes on both sides, it did eventually take any of the warping out of the wings themselves. So I wouldn't get too upset if you notice some of that warping when you're putting things together. If you hang with it, you can work that back out. Morning everybody, welcome back. It's Friday, the last work day of the week. Will not be the last work day on this TIE Fighter. I've got some extra stuff planned, but I'm going to pick up where we dropped off yesterday. Now, I don't think I covered this on camera, but I went ahead and finished the perimeter pieces, and I left them rubber banded together overnight just to hold them all in place. So the first thing to do this morning is to take off all the rubber bands and see how everything is looking. Now, from what I can see, everything has dried in just fine. I should have remembered what order these went on in. They'll come off a lot easier that way. Let's make a nice little guitar this way, though. Let's see, let's take all of this off. And there you go. It's a lot more stable than it was yesterday. It's not, I notice I've got a little bit of some glue bombage here. May have to touch that paint up a little bit. But this is the inside, this is the outside, and you can tell because it's got the two holes here for the cap that goes over top of that. So that's wing A. Again, just shaking it, it's a lot more stable than it was yesterday. Just take all of these bands off. Much more effective than trying to hold it down with a bunch of tape. Okay, this is a lot more stable. Again, this is the outside edge. That's looking pretty good. So now that we've got these done to this extent, we could put these aside and move on to today's work, which is going to include lighting up the engines and the lasers. We are back at the TIE Fighter, and I'm working on lighting, and the easiest lighting to do is the engines. I'm going to take a couple of these little tiny chip LEDs, slam them up against the back of the insert here, and wouldn't you know it, you have a light. So I was just checking to see how much room there was at the back of the vehicle, between the back wall of the cockpit and the back wall of the kit, because in case you haven't guessed it by now, that's how I'm going to be mounting this thing. I'm going to be mounting it through the back wall, and it's going to go like that. I'm going to use the insert from the bottom piece that I cut off, and then we're going to stick it to the wall like this. And that's how it's going to be displayed. It's going to be hung from the wall. So what I need to do, and that's another reason why I'm not going, whole hog on the lighting for the engines, because yes, they'll be lit, yes, they'll be shining against the wall, but that's pretty much it. You're not really going to see them up close and personal. So I can go ahead and put these little tiny bulbs in and glue the engine pieces on, and that will take care of the simplest of the lighting. Okay, I'm getting ready to take off for lunch, but I wanted to show a little bit of progress before I left. On the back piece here, we've got both of the engine pieces installed and wired up, so if you can see what that looks like there. Got both of those in, yay. I've also got the mounting pole situated. It's glued in place, tacked in place, and then I filled this entire cavity with 1 minute epoxy. That's curing up nicely, so that when the ship is displayed, I'll use that as the mounting. I'll use that as the mounting post. Let's see, I've also got the floor, if I can find it, where it happened to, oh, it's in place here. I've also got this module of red lights epoxied into the floor. And again, when we light that up, it looks like that. I'm going to put a couple, 3 pieces of diffusing material over it and suspend that underneath the floor. And when we get back, we can start working on the lasers. Alrighty, I'm back from lunch. Bojangles today, naturally. And we are working on the lasers, or the I'm going to call them lasers. They're not phasers. Wrong universe. They are lasers. And basically, we're going to recreate this part here. We're going to recreate that in brass and tube styrene. And I've got something that kind of looks like this up my sleeve. Sleeve being the operative word. This starts with this inner core of brass, which will fit in fits in the hole like that. Fits in the hole. And all this is doing is it's preventing light bleeding, because we have this strong red light in the floor, and right up here is where these lasers start. Well, you're going to get a lot of unwanted light bleed if you don't watch it. So what I'm going to do is start it right about there, something like that, and then when the wire comes out, we'll plug that opening with some of the JB weld or the steel stick, either one. But then we'll use that outside, and we will jacket this to get the right diameter, and then this will give us some of the raised accent, and that is the raised tip. I gotta clean these pieces off, but it's gonna look something like that. And then we'll have the front of the 3mm green bulb that will stick out the front of that, and that's what's going to recreate that the look and give us something that won't allow the floor lighting to interfere. All right, I've got my new lasers in. Frickin' lasers on my TIE Fighter. This piece of floor keeps falling out, but that's what they look like. It's a 3mm green LED inside a couple jacketed pieces of aluminum with insulating shrink tube on it, and then the styrene over the top. I swear it'll look better once they're painted. I don't think they should stick out that far, but I put it up against the stock piece and it's almost a good match. It's good enough for me. I'll take it. And here we have the lights hanging out from the inside. Now, I think I am ready to glue the cockpit in to the front, just like so. Line it up on all of the pegs that it has to line up on. Let me see. I've got there, both sides there. Now it's lined up. So that's in like it needs to be. Everything is, oops, I got a bit of a pinch going on here. Let me pull those wires up to the side. Don't want to pinch those. Actually, I need to see which is better. Probably underneath for both of those is better. There we go. I just don't want to end up covering up too much of the floor. But that's, now let's see how the floor looks when I put it on a battery. I have to remember these guys don't have a resistor on them, so don't touch the battery to that. But I can check the floor here. And in fact, we will find out that the floor is lava. Of course, your camera is seeing the bulbs a lot more obviously than they are. But that's looking pretty good. Alrighty here, it's getting about that time on a Friday afternoon, and I'm trying to think of where would be a good place to stop. I've got my two circuits set up. This is the common negative for both of them. These are the two positives. One is going to provide general lighting for the floor and the engines, and the other one is for the lasers, because I want to hit a button and be able to go pew pew pew. I don't want the lasers to be on all the time. That's ridiculous. So I need to get 3 lengths of wire that are way long that I can trim off later. And then I can close up these connections. And then I think if I can get the front and back closed up, and maybe I'm not going to get the front window on, I'm not going to get the top hatch done, but if I can at least show what the front and back together with maybe position the wings on the side just to show what the whole thing looks like, maybe that will be a good place to leave it for today. So let me get 3 lengths of wire, get these guys settled, push that wire through the back now, and get it ready to run out to post. Yeah, let's do that. I think that would be a good place to wrap up. Alrighty, so the 2 halves have been put together. Huzzahs and handsprings, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a big chunk of things done. I want to go ahead and put these patch pieces on. These are the pieces that are designed to cover a majority of the seam here. They go on the 4 corners of the ball and cover up this ugly joint, which I thought was just a brilliant idea, and I'm glad they thought of it. Just shows you that they had their eye on the ball, so to speak, because this would have been a horrible joint to leave exposed. Now I'm sure they're just echoing what the ILM people did when they created the original, but it's good to see that level of care and quality carried over. I am going to the problem with this now is it's very cumbersome because it is essentially a ball with 2 arms on it, and it does not want to sit square or flush. So maybe we can rest it on its back like this. I'm going to set the hatch in place, but I'm not going to glue the top half of it and the bottom half of it together. There is a clear piece that needs to go in between that I don't want to risk getting any glue bombs on. So we will we will work with that a little bit later. Okay, I'm just putting these 2 plates on, and then there's 2 more right in here. Oh, the sun is hitting that just perfectly. There's 2 more right in here that are covered with these pieces. But let's get the shoulders on. Now that those are on, I can turn this upside down and do the bottom. Oh, I've lost the bottom piece. How many times I've had to glue that thing back in? Let's try it one last time. And that little detail faces the front. There. Okay, we've got these guys to go in. Clean those up with the sanding stick. Sanding stick. Clean those up. Yeah, there's enough work here to carry on over into next week, because I still haven't put it on the stand or wired up any of the switches or wired up the base at all. So we will, let me do a couple more of these little things and then we'll be right back. Alrighty, I've got everything. I got it looks like one of those old-fashioned Three Stooges things where if a guy had a toothache, they would wrap a bandage around, a pressure bandage around his head. But that's kind of what it looks like. I'm just holding some joints together, rubber bands and tape. And I think now what I need to do is go get the wings and see if I can just put them on temporarily for show. Okay, here we go. I've got everything kind of pieced together. The wings slot on very, very nicely. I don't have the end caps holding them in place because there's still a lot of work to do before I'm ready to stick those wings on permanently. But we're going to start with the cockpit lights. Cockpit lights, very nice, very moody. And of course, you see on the back, you would see, if you could see the back side of this, you would see the engine lights on. They're both looking very nice. And then the second switch is going to be the lasers, which is a little bit of pew, 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 pew. That's what I'm going to end up doing. I'm putting a momentary switch on there so that I can just fire the lasers as long as I'd like to. And that, dear friends, is going to finish us off for week 1 on the studio scale TIE Fighter build from round 2/AMT. This is deceptively difficult, is what I'll say. You might think this is an easy kit to slap together. Nay. It has quite the elaborate way that it needs to go together. The wings themselves are a bit of a challenge. You figure, oh, that's going to be easy to do. Take your time, read the instructions. Trust me, it'll work better that way. So next week we will be attaching this to the base, doing the touch-ups and all of that kind of stuff. So until then, y'all be safe, be smart, be good to each other, be good to yourself, and we'll see you here next time.